Welcome to Everlutionary, a podcast about how we can heal and transform with the world. Every episode of my show, we explore conversations around philosophy, science, mysticism, social justice, how we can be change catalysts and activators and mobilize each other to create a world free of violence. I'm your host, Hawah Kasat. Hey, peace, my friends. Welcome back to Everlutionary, the podcast. I am your host, Hawah, and I'm out here on the East Coast of the United States of America now. For those of you that heard my podcast episode, my solo episode, a couple of episodes back, I was reflecting on my move cross country, and I was traveling back to the East Coast. I've been living in California for about 2 years, in Northern California, right in the Bay, near Oakland and San Francisco. And I moved here to the East Coast about 5 weeks ago, coming on 6 weeks now. I feel like I've been here for a few years. I cannot believe how much has happened in the last 6 weeks. And I figured my solo episode today would be a way to reinvigorate that conversation around trajectory in life and poetry and movement and love and changes and transitions. So here we are today, reflecting on where I am now, which is Appalachia, the Appalachia Mountains. If you're watching on YouTube, what you see behind me is a small pond, which is almost around the heart center of Roots to Sky Sanctuary, which is a BIPOC founded and led land justice sanctuary located in rural Appalachia, about 3 hours from Washington, D.C. We are right near the Eastern Continental Divide, which is a magical part of the planet because this is where the plate tectonics collide right here. And about 20 miles from where we're based is the actual divide. And at the divide, there's a fascinating phenomenon where all the rain that falls east of the Eastern Continental Divide, that rain, it washes and flows out towards the Chesapeake Bay and ultimately exits into the Atlantic Ocean. And then all the water and rain that falls west of the Eastern Continental Divide, that water flows into the Mississippi River, which ultimately goes out into the Gulf of Mexico. And we are located here at about 3,200 feet in elevation. I got here in the end of May, around June 1st. And I'm kind of slowly unpacking my boxes and trying to resituate and reimagine and create my life back here on the East Coast. So the transition is happening. I'm in full motion. And for those of you that want to hear about that, to kind of see where I left off on that solo episode, that was episode 27, which was our 1-year anniversary of the podcast. And it was called Take the Leap. And here I am, leaping and right back into the poetry of my life. And there's still some interesting grounding that I'm doing in the midst of all this. I think traveling and moving cross country can be more energetically and emotionally and physically than I'd anticipated. It was really funny. I was listening to ESPN the other day, which is like the sports network, and there was a basketball player that was being interviewed, and he's 30 years old, and it was Bobby Portis at the Milwaukee Bucks, and he was being interviewed, and they asked him, "Well, why did you resign in Milwaukee?" And Bobby responded, and he said, "Well, I mean, I'm 30 years old. I don't want to have to move anywhere far away. That's so much work. I just love where I am. It's so much easier to just be at my home." And I think about that kind of amusingly for myself, because, dropping and moving cross country 2 years ago and then moving back again, all the ways that I think I've been on the road for quite a long time in the past 5 or 10 years. It's a different lifestyle, and it's one that I'm still trying to come to terms with. So here I am at the sanctuary, and I want to talk about this sanctuary a lot more than I'm going to in this episode, and I think there will be time for that over the episodes to come. And this project really means a lot to me. We launched it in 2020, the year of COVID. Myself and a few friends, we came together, and as many people were thinking at that time during COVID, we really realized that we had to get out of the cities. We were just feeling kind of strangled and suffocated by the cities and kind of how we're all living on top of each other. And it is a deep privilege. Like, I want to recognize and honor the privilege it is to be able to make a decision to be able to leave and say, I don't want to live in the city right now. I want to go and move somewhere else. So that that inspiration of trying to just be more with nature, being able to listen to the land, to be able to have space where there wasn't this sense of constantly um, being in the midst of like trains or buses, and I was in elevators and close quarters all the time in my apartment building. So there was like this desire to kind of just have more blue sky and big clouds to sit under. Um, and so that kind of moved me out of DC and found my way out here to Roots to Sky Sanctuary near the end of 21 and lived 2020 near the end of 2020. And then I lived here a lot through 21 and 2022 until I left for California. And as I was talking about a couple of episodes ago, I mean, that was through the inspiration of love and following my heart and my partner at that time, and my dear, dear friend, Alicia. Um, so now I'm kind of like really reorganizing to life here in in the mountains, and reorienting again to life and what life looks like and how life is so different and how it can change so quickly. Uh, and those of you that have been following along and listening, I thank you for tuning in and continuing to tune in. I wanted today, I'm feeling like poetry today that's like moving through me right now. I think maybe it's because of the birds and where I am at the moment. I'm feeling poetry. I'm feeling also poetry because at the moment I am the interim co-executive director at a national youth organization called Youth Speaks. And over here at Youth Speaks, we have a festival every year called Brave New Voices. And Brave New Voices is the National Youth Poetry Slam. And this organization, which I'm currently helping at as a transition leader, this organization was really responsible for the International Youth Poetry Slam movement. And their festival, Brave New Voices, was highlighted and featured in HBO. Many years ago, they did a whole docu-series on HBO around the young people whose voices were being platformed and moved into the limelight, and all the political organizing, the social justice organizing, and the way the arts really inspire deep healing for all of us. So I'm honored to be over here at Youth Speaks. They're based in San Francisco, but their work really has a national footprint. I've been there for the last 6 months, supporting in this role. And right now, this week coming up, is the Brave New Voices Festival in Madison, Wisconsin. And there's going to be about 300 high school poets from around the country coming to light up the stage. And a lot of you can check that out. In fact, I'm going to put a link to Brave New Voices in the episode show notes. You can live stream it as well, and you can hear really some powerful, incredible reflections in poetry from young people from around the country. So I encourage you to check that out and check out the organization, Youth Speaks. I want to give a shout out to them because it's been an honor to work on that staff and with that team for the past 6 months. But in honor of Brave New Voices and in honor of like the poetry that I'm feeling in my body, if you can hear the little birds in the background, that might actually be because the sun is setting behind me and there's some incredible symphonies of birds in the background. So I wrote this poem, this spoken word poem. I wrote this poem many years ago when I was living in China for a few months. And I went to China to study Kung Fu and Baguazhang, and I really wanted to go deeper into my practice and find a Shaolin monastery to train at with monks. And I did find one ultimately in China where I stayed for about a month. And during that time, I had this incredible experience with the Shaolin monks where every morning we'd wake up at 5 in the morning and I was like training with them. And then sometime during lunch in the afternoons, during breaks, I would just be doing some yoga and like stretching and doing some asana. I'd often be found on my head doing headstands for really long periods of time. So they really took to that and they would kind of see me and they'd be like, "What are you doing?" Um, None of us spoke really a lot of each other's language. So I didn't speak a lot of Mandarin. They didn't speak a lot of English. So we kind of just did a lot of body mimicry and body mirroring, but they just really were fascinated by watching me doing yoga asana. And so they would mimic and start doing headstands and handstands with me. It was during that time that I wrote this poem. And this poem became like really an inspiration for a lot of my work. And I think it speaks a lot to where we are right now in the world. I think a lot about like revolutionary joy in this moment and how we can keep finding joy and why our joy is so important to never ever let anyone take our joy and our happiness from us. And throughout all of the feelings that maybe the house is on fire, there is no rainy day fund that we should be saving for. Like this is the rainy day moment. In the midst of all that, I'm really called to consider and to keep rooting myself and knowing that joy is something that is all of our birthright. And that birthright is something that we have to cultivate and hold really dear to our hearts and to keep holding and pushing each other to find those moments, to connect with each other in community. And so that's kind of like some of that's some of the anchors to this poem that I'm going to share right now that I wrote while in China. I put this to memory many years ago, and I performed this a few times on stage at various gatherings. It's called Sunrays and Moonbeams. The clouds could not hold us, descending, clear and translucent, as rain we pour, music as blood from our veins, beats drop, as wild flamingo cranes. The Amazon, Euphrates, Ganges and Lee, these rivers flow through our arteries, they are the pulse of our dreams, and as our egos recede, the forests will regrow, to once again interlace the dragon terrace rice fields and water buffalo, for in their timeless dance we are sown. Our bones are the coral reefs. Our lungs are the rainforests. Our lives are the message. Know this. Know this. We are ascending. The dirt cannot keep us in the ground. The soil would not prevent us from breaking the speed of sound. Even within gravity, we could not be bound, for we are descended. Sunrays and moonbeams which cut through the night. We are born of stardust and turtle eggs, hatching when the season is ripe. We are the source, the roots of a tree, digging deep. Calloused hands, holding axes, could not chop down the mightiest of our ancient peaks. Let us climb them, cast the pearls back into the ocean, so to know our mother again, no longer needing to strangle beauty around our necks. The future is in our hands. And if it's not okay, it's not the end. If it's not okay, it's not the end. Because no matter how far away it may seem or how lost we may be, the light will always reach us and love will always find us. Love will find us. Love will find us. Love will find us and move us as elephants stampeding through the open fields of the Masai Mara as they tend to their young Ears so wide and large that hearing is never at a loss, and if we listen intently on a quiet dawn, we will hear the footsteps of the sages traversing ages with beautiful songs. For every few thousand years, within us they are reborn, cast back down upon the earth, and hope is the glue that keeps us reaching our arms to the sky. Don't ever let them tell you you cannot. Know why you are here. Open your chest back and breathe in to your heart. Meaning is planted in your toes, and know that it's not too late, that it's never too late, that it's always just beginning. For today, our resolve shakes the foundations of ill will. Today, we move stealthily as hawks, sidewinding down sheer ice-faced cliffs, dodging the obscurity. Lucid is this vision. The way is clear. The path is now. The time is perfect. Know this. We are children of infinite possibility. Creativity gave birth to our dreams. Wings break free out of our shoulder blades, and wonder is constantly wandering through our senses. Acute is our passion, fiercely wise our gaze. As an eagle sees through miles of sky, we see this incredible opportunity ahead of us. And also a challenge so massive that escaping extinction may at times seem dauntingly out of place. But do not lose hope. Do not lose hope. Because every time a bee dances to a flower, a new relationship is born, and the instinct of needing each other will prevail over selfish greed. A need for harmony will surpass the need for material things, and you are the opportunity for all of this. You and me, we possess the strength of generations of ancestors. They circle in our DNA, give rise to our skyscrapers, mud huts, and self-sustaining villages. And I don't know much, but this I believe. We will rise together, all of us. We will rise together, all of us, standing as the hairs on our skin. We will rise together, all of us, one by one, standing so tall that the trees will applaud us with their leaves. And if we listen to them rustling to speak, we will remember that we no longer need to mine the ground to search for diamonds and coal. We will remember what's most important in life cannot be sold. We will remember how to move as slow as snails and gracefully as hummingbirds, how to sing across oceans as whales, and how to watch lightning bugs without the need to bottle them. And then, on that day, we will once again hear the penguins whispering freedom in our ears, and remember that the secret to staying warm lies in unity, not division and fear. Remember, my friends, wherever you are, you might be driving a car right now. You might be listening to this while you're doing the dishes. Maybe you're on a walk, going through the woods, and you're looking around at the trees or watching a sunset. Wherever you are, just don't forget. Just remember. Remember that we have descended as sunrays and moonbeams which cut through the night. We are born of stardust and turtle eggs, hatching when the season is ripe. We have descended as rain, searching for a seed to cultivate. It is inevitable. New life will pour from our skin, and humanity will transform into a species that values peace. Hold close in your heart this simple understanding and dream, dream, dream. Because no matter how far away it may seem, or how lost we may be, the light will always reach us and love will always find us. No matter where we have buried our hearts, love will find us. Love will find us and make miracles of us all. Oh, that's Sunrays and Moonbeams. It's a little poem, a little spoken word poem I wrote a long while back. Some of you might have heard it before. Uh, wherever you are, take some breaths and make them a little deeper, a little longer. Invite the poetry back into your life. We get so quickly trapped in these cycles of like monotony. I know for myself, I am often attempting to somehow stretch time. I had this poem a long time ago where I said I had to break the hands off of the clock so I could free time from its cage. It was like liberate time from the clock. And what would that be like? And for me, I think what's been interesting about the past 5 weeks, 6 weeks of now being back on the East Coast from California is time actually feels really extended in this moment. I feel like the past 6 weeks, it feels like almost 6 months have gone by in 6 weeks. And part of that is, I think, this psychological experience of time that shifts because I'm not in a monotonous routine at the moment. I think monotony can sometimes lead to becoming really comfortable, and that comfortability can allow the days to kind of flow one after the other. And then the days kind of just get lost and they merge together. And so it's kind of sweet because at the moment, even though I'm destabilized and not exactly sure where my ground is and where my home is, and I'm still trying to like cocoon, like in the ways that I need to, and find my mug and find my French press and all the little things that make it feel like home. Even though I'm in that process, it's kind of it's nice and it's sweet because the novelty of being somewhere new again, which was somewhere old because I did used to live here a long time ago. That novelty, it creates a new sense of expansiveness and spaciousness with time. And I think that invites poetry. Like that's a part of the poetry. Some of you might be able to relate to this. For those that used to, if you write poetry or you're like poetic or creative, I've noticed as the years have passed, there was a time in my life where I would write like a poem every week or two, at least. Sometimes I'd write 2 or 3 poems in a week. It's just a normal part of my practice. And I've noticed over the past 5, 6, 7 years that, I might write a poem once a month or once every couple of months. It doesn't flow and come out as often as it did um, earlier, you know, many years ago. And so, whatever reason that is, it's hard to tell. But then there's certain moments and times in my life where, even right now, like over last winter, I remember I was writing a lot more poetry. And those moments tend to happen when I can have some space to allow that inspiration to kind of come through. And so I am inviting that inspiration into my life, and I'm inviting that inspiration into your life. If you're listening, wherever you are, I invite you to find some novelty and something new that you haven't done in a while. Uh, Try something different. There's a there's this book I read a long time ago, and I don't remember the book and I don't remember the author, but I often remember the story. This little short part of the book when the author wrote that there are probably more than 100 ways that you could wash the dishes. Uh, For those of you that have been at the kitchen sink, some of you are listening to this podcast while washing your dishes. And this author was saying that we learn how to wash our dishes at some point, like it's culturalized and socialized by our parents or our caregivers. And however we learn to wash the dishes at a young age, that becomes the way that we wash our dishes for the rest of our lives. So if you're like 25 or you're 35 or you're 45, if you're 55 and you're listening to this podcast right now, you might be washing the dishes and doing it in the same exact way that you did it 20 years ago. And what the author from this book was writing about was how it's incredible that we get so attached to that one way of doing things and how we spend the rest of our lives doing it the way we initially learned. And how something as simple as washing the dishes, there could be 30 different ways you could approach washing the dishes. You could think about how you soap them, what you do with the water, you put them in the dishwasher. How do you relate to that? And then what are the creative new ways that you can experiment with? And experimentation is such an important part of creativity. And to experiment with your habits and your patterns, to experiment with what you do first thing when you wake up in the morning, the habits you build. These are the things that create new spaciousness and novelty. And if you're washing the dishes and wanting this moment to reflect, maybe wash your dishes in a different way and just see what happens. And maybe you revert back in the end to how you learned, and that's cool. But at least you tried in a different way for a little bit. It's important to try new things to keep the brain. For me, it's like really about keeping the brain malleable, like really flexible. How do you keep the mind open to experimentation and trying new things? Because that's how we iterate. That's, for me at least, that's how I find new ways, perspectives, and new ways to look at the world. So use that as hopefully a little inspiration. Maybe you're going to write a poem. Maybe you're going to find a different way to start your morning or a different bedtime routine. Shake things up a little bit. That's my offering from this podcast episode. I'm still in the shake up mode, trying to figure out what's next here as I'm out here. But there are things that are next. Y'all can find me. You can find me teaching in the end of August in Massachusetts. You'll find me again teaching in December. You can find me in a lot of ways. And I'm hopefully going to be launching some new programs by next year where you all can connect more in the community through this Everlutionary podcast community. I'd love to start launching some initiatives here as well. And then if you get a chance, be sure to shoot me a message and drop me a line. Let me know what you want to hear me rap about or talk about or sing about, because I'd love to make sure that this podcast is continuing to be beneficial and supportive to you on your journey. And be sure to check out some of the older episodes if you haven't, which I think offer a lot of beautiful juice and reflections on the state of the planet and around global planetary healing. So thank you for tuning in. Lots of love. Stay in touch. Be well. And I'll connect with you all soon. Peace. Everlutionary, transforming and healing the world, is brought to you by me, Hawah Kasat. If you would like to find out more about my story, head to hawahkasat.com and visit social media, where I'm active on Instagram, Substack, LinkedIn, TikTok, and Facebook. Be sure to share this podcast with a friend, and to make sure you don't miss any future episodes, hit that subscribe button on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Thank you for listening. Stay in touch. Peace.